I was sitting across from my father's estate lawyer when my entire world shattered. Not in a hospital. Not at home. In a beige conference room that smelled like leather and old paper. Richard Chen had been our family attorney for 20 years. He knew my father better than most people. So when he paused mid-sentence while reviewing the will, his finger hovering over a specific line, I knew something was wrong. "Marcus," he said carefully, "when did you approve, adding Elena as a secondary beneficiary?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" He turned the document toward me. There it was. My wife's name. Listed right beneath mine. With an allocation of 40% of my father's estate, an estate worth roughly $2.3 million. "I never approved this," I said, my voice steady but my hands starting to shake. "When was this added?" Richard flipped through his notes. "Amendment dated November 8th, 5 weeks ago." He looked at me. "You were in Chicago for the Franklin Tower project." The math hit me like a freight truck. I had been gone for 3 weeks. My father had been too weak to leave his bed most days. And Elena had been the one staying with him, taking care of him. Or so I thought. "Pull everything," I said quietly. "Every document. Every revision. Every change made in the last 6 months." Richard's expression shifted. He had seen this before. He was an estate lawyer. He knew what family greed looked like. "Marcus, if you suspect undue influence—" "I don't suspect anything yet," I interrupted. "But I want to know who's been in that house. I want to know what's been signed. And I want to know if my signature is on any of this." He nodded once. "I'll have my paralegal compile everything by tomorrow." I drove home in silence. Elena was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming while she chopped vegetables. She looked up and smiled. That same warm smile I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. "How was your dad?" she asked. "Stable," I said. Richard and I went through the estate updates. I watched her face. Nothing. Not a flicker. Not a pause. "That's good," she said, turning back to the cutting board. "I'm making your favorite. Thought you could use comfort food." I sat at the kitchen island and watched her cook. And for the first time in our marriage, I studied her like a stranger. The way she moved, the way she spoke. Looking for cracks in the performance. That night, I went to my father's house. He was asleep when I arrived. I sat in the chair beside his bed and opened my laptop. I started going through our joint bank account. The one Elena and I shared. The one I rarely checked because I trusted her. $47,000. Withdrawn over 4 months. In increments of 3 to 5,000. All from ATMs near my father's neighborhood. My jaw clenched. I opened her credit card statements next. Charges I didn't recognize. A medical spa in Beverly Hills. Repeated charges. $12,000. $18,000. Another $23,000. I pulled up her social media. She had been posting about self-care journeys and investing in myself. Photos of her looking refreshed. Radiant. Different somehow. I closed the laptop and looked at my father. He looked so frail. So small in that bed. And I realized with a sickening clarity that someone had been using him. Using his illness. Using his trust. The next morning, I called a forensic accountant. Then I hired a private investigator. Not for surveillance. For records. I needed paper trails. I needed proof. By the end of the week, I had it. Elena had convinced my father to pay for a series of cosmetic procedures. She told him she needed to look professional for her interior design clients. That it was an investment in our future. My father, generous and trusting, had written her checks. $83,000 total. But here's what made my blood run cold. She hadn't told me. Not once. She had been coming home, kissing me goodnight, and lying next to me while hiding the fact that she had manipulated my dying father out of nearly $100,000. I sat in my car outside her favorite coffee shop and called the investigator. "I need you to dig deeper," I said. "Find out who she's been seeing. Where she goes. Who she talks to." "You think there's someone else?" he asked. "I think there's something else," I said. "And I need to know what it is before I confront her." 3 days later, he sent me a folder. Inside were photos. Elena walking out of a medical office building in West Hollywood, holding hands with a man I didn't recognize. Kissing him in a parking garage. Getting into his car. I reverse searched his license plate. Dr. Nathan Cross. Plastic surgeon. 42. Divorced. I stared at the photos for a long time. Then I made a list. A timeline. November 8th. The will was amended. November 10th. First withdrawal from our account. November 15th. First charge at the medical spa. Nathan Cross's medical spa. She wasn't just having an affair. She was having an affair with the doctor who was taking her money. My father's money. And she had added herself to my father's will right before it all started. This wasn't infidelity. This was a plan. I didn't go home that night. I went to my office and I started building a case. I pulled our prenuptial agreement. I reviewed our joint assets. I documented every withdrawal, every charge, every lie. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my father's nurse. "Carol," I said, "I need to ask you something. Has Elena been giving my father his medications?" There was a pause. "Yes." She insisted on managing his pillbox. Said she wanted to help. My stomach dropped. "When did that start?" "About 2 months ago." "Why?" "I need you to do me a favor," I said carefully. "I need you to check his current medications against his prescription list. And I need you to tell me if anything doesn't match." She called me back an hour later. Her voice was shaking. "Marcus, there are pills in his box that aren't prescribed. I don't know what they are." I drove to my father's house immediately. Carol met me at the door with the pill box. I took photos of everything. Then I took 3 of the unknown pills and put them in a baggie. The next morning, I had them tested at a private lab. Benzodiazepines. Sedatives. Not prescribed by his doctor. Not approved for someone with his condition. Pills that would make him sleep more, seem more confused, more compliant. She was drugging my father. I sat in the parking lot of the lab and called Richard Chen. "I need you to petition the court to freeze my father's estate," I said. "Right now. Today. On what grounds? Elder abuse. Undue influence. Possible medical tampering. I'll send you everything I have." That afternoon, I finally went home. Elena was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I walked in. "Where have you been?" she asked. I was worried. I set my bag down carefully. "Working." She stood up and walked over to me, put her hand on my chest. "You've been distant lately. Is everything okay?" I looked down at her hand, the hand that had forged documents, that had stolen money, that had put pills in my father's medication. "Everything's fine," I said. She smiled, kissed my cheek. "Good. I missed you." I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to her in the dark and listened to her breathe. And I thought about how many nights I had done this. Trusting her. Believing in her. While she had been planning this entire thing. The court order came through on a Wednesday. My father's estate was frozen pending investigation. Elena received the notice by courier at noon. She called me 17 times. I didn't answer. I was in a meeting with Richard and 2 investigators from the district attorney's office. "We have enough for fraud," the DA investigator said. "The forged signatures. The financial manipulation. The medication tampering is elder abuse. That's a felony." "What about him?" I asked, sliding Nathan Cross's photo across the table. "If he knew about the medications, he could lose his license." "We'll investigate." I finally answered Elena's call at 4 p.m. "What the hell is going on?" she said, her voice tight. "Why is my name on a court order? Where are you right now?" I asked calmly. "At home." "Marcus, what is happening?" "Stay there." "I'm coming." I drove home slowly, deliberately. When I walked through the door, she was pacing in the living room. Her face was red, her hands were shaking. "Explain this to me," she demanded, holding up the court document. I sat down on the couch. "Which part would you like me to explain? The part where you manipulated my dying father into changing his will? Or the part where you stole $83,000 from him? Or maybe the part where you've been drugging him?" Her face went white, then red, then something harder. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos, the bank records, the pill testing results, the timeline. "Nathan Cross," I said quietly. "Your plastic surgeon boyfriend. The one you've been seeing while spending my father's money on procedures he paid for." She sat down slowly. "You went through my things. You drugged my father." "I never," she started, but I cut her off. "The pills, Elena? Benzodiazepines. Found in his medication box. Not prescribed. Making him more compliant so you could get him to sign things he didn't understand." Tears started falling. The performance was beginning. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "Nathan said it would just help your dad relax. Make him more comfortable." "Nathan knew?" I said, leaning forward. "Your boyfriend knew you were sedating my father?" She didn't answer. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice calm but final. "You're going to pack a bag. You're going to leave this house. And you're going to get a lawyer. Because tomorrow morning, I'm filing for divorce. And the day after that, the district attorney is filing criminal charges." She stood up, suddenly angry. "You can't prove any of this." I stood too. I have photos of you with Nathan. I have bank records showing you withdrew our money near his office. I have receipts from his medical spa. I have the pills tested by a certified lab. I have your forged signature on my father's will amendment. And I have Carol's testimony that you insisted on managing his medications right before he started declining faster. I stepped closer. I can prove all of it, Elena. And I will. She grabbed her purse and her phone. I loved you, she said, her voice breaking. No, I said. You loved the idea of my father's money. There's a difference. She left that night. I changed the locks the next morning. The investigation moved fast. Nathan Cross was questioned within 48 hours. At first, he denied everything. Said he and Elena were just friends. That the medical procedures were standard. That he had no knowledge of anything regarding my father. Then the DA's office pulled his phone records. Text messages between him and Elena. Messages that mentioned my father. Messages that included phrases like, when this is over and we'll have everything we need in 6 months, maybe less. They were planning this. Both of them. Waiting for my father to die. Waiting to inherit. Waiting to start their life together. Nathan's medical license was suspended pending investigation. His practice was shut down. His ex-wife, who had divorced him 2 years prior, came forward with similar allegations of financial manipulation during their marriage. Elena was arrested on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there. I was with my father. He had been taken off the sedatives. Under proper medical supervision, and slowly, gradually, he was getting better. More alert. More himself. Marcus. He said one afternoon, his voice weak but clear. Where's Elena? I held his hand. She's not coming back, Dad. He looked at me for a long moment. I thought she cared about me. I know, I said. I did too. The trial happened faster than I expected. Elena's lawyer tried to argue that she had been manipulated by Nathan. That she didn't understand what she was doing. That she was a victim too. But the text told a different story. Her texts. Her words. Planning the will change. Discussing my father's timeline. Calculating percentages. She was sentenced to 14 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and ordered to pay full restitution. Nathan Cross lost his medical license permanently and received 18 months for conspiracy to commit elder abuse. I sold the house. Too many memories. Too many lies hidden in those walls. I moved into a smaller place closer to my father. Spent more time with him. Rebuilt what had been almost destroyed. One evening, about 6 months after everything ended, my father and I were sitting on his porch. He was stronger now. Almost back to himself. You saved my life, he said quietly. I shook my head. I just paid attention. That's the same thing, he said. We sat in silence for a while. Then he asked, do you regret marrying her? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have known what trust really means. And I wouldn't have learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to watch the most carefully. He nodded. That's a hard lesson. Yeah, I said. But necessary. I started dating again eventually. Slowly. Carefully. I told every woman I met the same thing on the first date. I have trust issues. I have boundaries. And I will verify everything. Most of them understood. Some didn't. That was okay. I wasn't looking for someone who would tolerate my caution. I was looking for someone who would earn my trust properly. The way it should be earned. About a year after the trial, I ran into one of Elena's former friends at a coffee shop. She approached me hesitantly. I'm sorry, she said. I should have told you. Told me what? That she was different when you weren't around? That she talked about money a lot. About what she would do when the time came. She looked down. I thought she meant when you guys had kids or something. I didn't know she meant. It's not your fault, I said. Still. I should have said something. I thought about that for a long time after she left. How many people see things and say nothing? How many warning signs get ignored because confrontation is uncomfortable? How many lives get destroyed because someone chose silence over truth? My father passed away 3 years later. Peacefully. In his sleep, surrounded by family. His real family. People who loved him without agenda. Without calculation. At his funeral, I gave the eulogy. I talked about his kindness, his generosity. And how those qualities, while beautiful, had made him vulnerable. I talked about the importance of protecting the people we love. Even from themselves sometimes. I didn't mention Elena by name. But everyone who knew the story understood what I was saying. After the funeral, my cousin pulled me aside. You did the right thing, he said. Not everyone would have fought like that. I didn't have a choice, I said. He was my father. You always have a choice, he replied. You chose justice. A lot of people would have chosen silence, or revenge, or just walked away. I thought about that. About the difference between justice and revenge. Justice is about making things right. Revenge is about making someone hurt. I had wanted both at times. But I had chosen justice. And that made all the difference. I rebuilt my architecture practice. Took on smaller projects. Things that mattered. Community centers. Affordable housing. Places that would help people rather than just make money. I met someone new. Her name was Claire. She was a teacher. Grounded. Honest. The first time I told her about Elena, she listened without judgment. Do you trust me? She asked when I finished. I'm learning to, I said. That's fair, she said. Take your time. We've been together for 2 years now. I still verify things sometimes. Still check accounts. Still ask questions. But it's getting easier. The scars are healing. Sometimes late at night, I think about Elena, about where she is, what she's doing. If she ever thinks about what she destroyed, if she feels remorse, or if she just feels caught, I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her anything. She's a chapter in my life that's closed. A lesson learned. A reminder that love without trust is just a beautiful lie. And I learned something else. Something I tell people now when they ask about what happened. I learned that silence isn't always golden. Sometimes silence is just fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of truth. Fear of disrupting the peace. But there's no peace in a foundation built on lies. There's no safety in ignoring red flags. And there's no love in blind trust. Real love requires vigilance. It requires attention. It requires the courage to ask hard questions and the strength to hear hard answers. My father taught me generosity. Elena taught me caution. And together, they taught me balance. I still visit my father's grave every Sunday. I tell him about my week. About Claire. About the projects I'm working on. And sometimes, I thank him for being kind enough to inspire my vigilance, and for being strong enough to survive what almost killed him. Because in the end, we both survived. We both got justice. And we both learned that sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up teaching you exactly what you needed to know. That the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. That trust is earned, not given. And that family, real family, is worth fighting for. Even when the fight is against someone you once called family too.